The man charged in Tupac Shakur's murder is speaking out from behind bars for the first time.
I'm innocent. I ain't killed nobody, never did, ever kill nobody.
For decades, the name Tupac Shakur has echoed through music, culture, and controversy like no other. His voice still speaks through speakers, his lyrics still hit the streets, and his story still refuses to rest. Just when the world thought every angle had been explored, every rumor dissected, and every theory debated to death, new footage has surfaced, footage that forces us to look again. This newly revealed material doesn't just add details, it reshapes the narrative. It is raw, unsettling, and deeply human. It pulls back the curtain on Tupac's final moments, his last fight for life, and the reality of what happened that night in Las Vegas. For many, this footage is not just shocking, it's definitive. Since September 1996, Tupac's death has lived in a strange space between fact and myth. Official records told one story, but the streets told another. Fans around the world clung to hope, conspiracy, and belief that someone as powerful as Tupac could never truly be gone. Some believed he escaped the industry. Others claimed he faked his death to live in peace. Entire documentaries, books, and internet theories were built on the idea that Tupac Shakur was still alive somewhere, watching from the shadows. But the newly surfaced footage changes the tone of the conversation entirely. It doesn't rely on rumors or second-hand accounts. Instead, it aligns with what jurors saw inside a Las Vegas courtroom, evidence that had never been fully absorbed by the public. Inside that courtroom, prosecutors made a deliberate choice. They knew this wasn't just another murder case. This was Tupac Shakur, a global icon whose death had grown into legend. They understood that simply presenting paperwork wouldn't be enough. The public had spent decades questioning every official statement. So they brought visuals that left no room for fantasy. Jurors were shown a haunting image of Tupac's body lying helpless, his torso marked with bullet wounds. The scars, the stitches, the physical evidence of doctors fighting to save him, all of it was laid bare. This wasn't an abstract idea of death. It was real, final, and devastating. The prosecution didn't stop there. They introduced photographs of the BMW that Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight were riding in on the night of September 7, 1996. The car itself looked like a battlefield, metal torn apart by bullets, glass shattered, and the interior soaked in blood. The seats told a story no rumor ever could. Blood patterns showed exactly where Tupac sat, how the shots entered, and how violently that moment unfolded. These were not symbolic images. They were forensic facts, frozen in time. To further dismantle decades of speculation, the court called a witness who knew Tupac long before the fame, before the platinum records, before the world knew his name. A childhood friend, someone who had no reason to lie, no benefit to gain, took the stand. He had been with Tupac after the shooting, present in the aftermath when hope was still alive. When asked whether he had heard from Tupac since the day he passed, his answer was simple and final: no. No phone calls, no secret messages, no hidden survival. Then came one of the most emotional moments in the testimony. He described how Tupac's mother, Afeni Shakur, entered the hospital and told everyone the truth. Her son was gone. That moment, he said, never changed in his memory. Even the prosecutors acknowledged the weight of the conspiracy culture surrounding Tupac's death. Before asking certain questions, they apologized to the witness, calling it a silly question. Not because it was unimportant, but because they already understood how deep the rumors ran. They addressed the idea that Tupac had faked his death head-on, not to entertain it, but to put it to rest. The courtroom wasn't a place for myths, it was a place for evidence. That evidence continued with testimony from the medical examiner and the detective who attended Tupac's autopsy. Both confirmed the same conclusion: Tupac Shakur died from complications related to multiple gunshot wounds. The death certificate was presented to the jury, sitting there like a final stamp of reality. No symbolism, no interpretation, just truth. Alongside it were images taken on the Las Vegas Strip, blood stains marking where Tupac had collapsed before losing consciousness. These visuals weren't meant to sensationalize. They were meant to connect every piece of the timeline into one unbroken chain of events. Another major component of the prosecution's case involved Keefe D. Over the years, Keefe D. had spoken openly in interviews, sometimes boasting, sometimes explaining, about his role in the events surrounding Tupac's death. The DA played videos of him speaking in his own words, recounting that night. In some moments, he appeared proud. In others, almost casual. Excerpts from his memoir, Compton Street Legend, were read aloud. In those pages, Keefe D. described how the night unfolded, how the search for Tupac began, and how the Glock pistol was passed around inside the Cadillac. According to his account, once they spotted Tupac and Suge Knight, Shots were fired into the BMW from behind, sealing a moment that would change hip-hop forever. To understand how that night reached such a violent conclusion, you have to rewind the clock to earlier on September 7, 1996. Tupac Shakur was living fast, fully immersed in the chaos and energy that followed him everywhere. Las Vegas was buzzing that night, packed with celebrities, fighters, and fans gathering for the heavyweight championship bout between Mike Tyson and Bruce Seldon at the MGM Grand. Tupac was there, larger than life, surrounded by his crew. By his side, as always, was Death Row Records CEO Marion Suge Knight. The fight itself was over almost as soon as it began. Mike Tyson demolished Bruce Seldon in less than 2 minutes, and the arena erupted. As the crowd poured into the MGM Grand lobby, energy was high, emotions were raw, and tension lingered in the air. That's when fate stepped in. Trayvon Trey Lane, a known associate of Suge Knight, spotted Orlando Anderson, a young member of the Southside Compton Crips. This wasn't a random encounter. Months earlier, in July 1996, Anderson and others had allegedly attempted to rob Lane at a Foot Locker in Lakewood, California. In street culture, disrespect like that doesn't fade with time, it waits. Lane immediately alerted Tupac. Tupac, never one to back down, approached Anderson directly. He asked him if he was from the South, a coded question that carried serious weight. Without waiting for a response, Tupac threw the first punch, knocking Anderson to the ground. What followed was chaos. Members of Suge Knight's entourage joined in, stomping and beating Anderson as a message. This wasn't just a fight, it was a public humiliation. MGM Grand security rushed in, breaking up the altercation before it escalated further. The entire incident was captured on surveillance cameras, footage that would later become critical evidence. After the fight, Tupac didn't seem concerned. If anything, he appeared energized. He returned to the Luxor Hotel and contacted Kadada Jones, telling her about the altercation with Orlando Anderson. At the time, it may have seemed like just another Vegas scuffle. But on the streets, nothing goes unnoticed and nothing goes unanswered. Later that night, Tupac and Suge Knight left the hotel in a black BMW, heading toward Club 662, a Death Row Records own nightclub. The city lights of Las Vegas blurred past them as they cruised down Flamingo Road at a red light. Another car pulled up beside them, a white Cadillac. Within seconds, gunfire erupted. Bullets tore through the BMW, shattering glass and metal. Tupac was hit multiple times in the chest, arm, and thigh. Suge Knight was grazed. The BMW sped away, but the damage was done. Tupac was rushed to the hospital where doctors fought desperately to save him. For days, he lay in critical condition. Machines kept him alive. Family and friends gathered, holding on to hope. But the injuries were too severe. On September 13, 1996, Tupac Shakur was pronounced dead. He was just 25 years old. The newly surfaced footage brings all of this together, not as legend, not as rumor, but as reality. It aligns with courtroom evidence, medical records, witness testimony, and forensic detail. It doesn't erase the mystery surrounding Tupac's life, but it clarifies the truth about his death. What remains is not a conspiracy, but a tragedy, a brilliant artist caught in the crossfire of street politics, ego, and violence. Tupac's legacy, however, was never meant to end in silence. His words still challenge power, his music still speaks for the unheard, and his story remains a cautionary tale. The footage doesn't diminish his legend. It grounds it. It reminds us that behind the icon was a human being, flawed, fearless, and ultimately mortal. And while the world may finally be forced to accept the truth of his passing, Tupac Shakur's voice will never fade. She had been resting elsewhere, away from the chaos, and Pac made sure she remained protected while he handled everything unfolding around him. That was always his instinct: protect first, deal with consequences later. The night had already carried a strange weight, one of those nights where energy felt thick, where something unseen lingered in the air. Still, life didn't pause for tension. Obligations remained. Commitments had to be honored. And for Tupac Shakur, the show always went on. After the earlier incident, Suge Knight and Tupac climbed into a sleek black BMW, a symbol of power, success, and status, and rolled out toward Club 662, Suge's own venue. Tupac was scheduled to perform there for a charity concert. And despite everything that had happened, no one was about to cancel the night. Las Vegas was buzzing, glowing with neon lights and false calm, pretending not to notice the undercurrent of danger flowing through its streets. As the car moved through the city, Tupac appeared relaxed, confident, even amused, as if the world was exactly where he wanted it to be. During those final quiet moments before everything changed, Leonard Jefferson, Tupac's close friend, snapped a photograph. That image would later become iconic, haunting, and tragic. It captured Tupac smiling, alive, present in the moment, unaware that it would be the last photograph ever taken of him. At the time, it was just another picture, another memory among many. But history has a way of transforming ordinary moments into permanent symbols. Despite the laughter and casual energy, tension was undeniable. Earlier that night, Orlando Anderson had been publicly humiliated in the MGM Grand Lobby. The streets had rules, and those rules were unforgiving. Respect was currency, and once it was taken, retaliation was expected. No one who truly understood street culture believed the situation was over. Being attacked in front of witnesses, hundreds of them, was not something that simply faded away. The embarrassment wasn't private. It was public, recorded, and talked about. And in that world, public disrespect demanded a response. Tupac, however, seemed unfazed. He laughed, joked, and spoke about his upcoming performance, fully immersed in the moment. But beneath that surface, his earlier actions were already setting something dark into motion. The MGM lobby fight wasn't just a scuffle or a burst of anger, it was a spark. A spark capable of igniting consequences far greater than anyone present could control. Security may have broken up the fight, and Anderson may have been escorted out. But no escort could remove the humiliation that lingered. That kind of disrespect followed people into the streets, into their thoughts, and into their decisions. As the crew left the Luxor, rolling out in a small convoy, the energy from earlier still clung to them. Tupac looked sharp, dressed in fresh clothes, moving like a man at the peak of his career. Kadada Jones remained at the hotel, as Tupac instructed, while Leonard held onto the image he had just captured, an image of a young man at the height of fame, confidence, and power, yet unknowingly standing on the edge of tragedy. That BMW ride was more than transportation. It was the calm before the storm. Tupac was alive in the moment, aware of his surroundings, feeling the streets watching him, absorbing the love, the hype, the attention. He understood the weight of his presence. He felt the pulse of the city and the eyes on him. But Las Vegas doesn't sleep, and karma moves fast there. Every move he made, every word he spoke, every punch thrown earlier that night carried consequences that were already catching up. At around 11 o'clock to 11:05 p.m., Tupac and Suge night cruised down Las Vegas Boulevard in that black BMW. Riding through the neon glow of the Strip, the chaos at the MGM felt momentarily distant, as if the night might settle back into something normal. But Vegas police never miss much. Officers from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department bike patrol spotted the car and pulled it over. The music was playing loudly, and the officers noticed the license plates weren't visible. It was a routine stop, classic Vegas, nothing dramatic. The plates weren't missing. They were simply in the trunk. A few minutes of calm conversation followed. No raised voices, no aggression, just polite exchanges, nods, and smiles. No tickets were issued. Tupac, Suge, and everyone inside the car remained cool and cooperative. The police let them go, unaware that they had just delayed fate by only a few minutes. Once back on the road, Tupac slipped back into his rhythm. He moved between relaxed charm and street awareness with ease. He understood the streets never forget. But even he didn't expect the night to descend into something far darker. The energy was strange, subtle, heavy, but not alarming enough to trigger fear. It felt like any other night, filled with tension that usually faded away by morning. A few minutes later, around 11:10 p.m., the night seemed to return to ordinary Vegas vibes. Tupac and Suge stopped at a red light at the intersection of East Flamingo Road and Koval Lane. Directly in front of the Maxim Hotel, traffic was steady. Neon lights reflected off polished cars. Tupac leaned casually near the passenger window of the BMW, relaxed, present, alive. Two women pulled up beside the BMW on the left. It was a normal Vegas moment. Chance encounters at red lights were part of the city's rhythm. Tupac turned toward them, smiling, talking, joking. His charisma was effortless. He wasn't just speaking. He was connecting. He invited them to come through to Club 662, his spot where he was scheduled to perform. It was Tupac being Tupac, magnetic, generous with attention, full of life. Then, without warning, everything changed. At approximately 11:15 p.m., a white four-door, late-model Cadillac pulled up on the right side of the BMW. The moment passed so quickly that there was no time to react. The rear passenger window of the Cadillac rolled down and gunfire erupted. Multiple shots exploded into the night, tearing through the air with brutal precision. The weapon, a .40 caliber Glock 22, unleashed chaos. Bullets tore into Tupac's side of the car. He was struck 4 times. 2 bullets hit his chest. 1 struck his arm. Another tore into his thigh. One of the chest wounds punctured his right lung, a catastrophic injury that immediately threatened his life. The sound of gunfire shattered the illusion of safety that had surrounded them only moments earlier. Suge Knight was also hit, though not directly by bullets. Fragments and shrapnel struck his head, causing injury but not life-threatening damage. The Cadillac sped away into the Vegas night, disappearing as quickly as it had arrived, leaving silence, shock, and devastation behind. The streets that had watched Tupac rise now watched him fall. The spark from the MGM lobby had ignited exactly as the streets demanded. The consequences had arrived, swift and merciless. In a matter of seconds, a night meant for music, charity, and celebration turned into one of the most tragic moments in hip-hop history. What had felt like destiny moments earlier now felt like inevitability. The laughter, the photo, the casual conversations at red lights, all of it vanished beneath the weight of gunfire. The streets had collected their debt, and Las Vegas, glowing and indifferent, continued shining as if nothing had happened at all.